When Camille took the job to care for reclusive millionaire Oliver Blackwood, she never expected his past to collide with hers. A forbidden room, buried secrets, and a web of lies threatened to tear them apart, or bring them closer than ever before. We get into the story. Comment below where in the world you're watching from today. Camille Rivers stared at the iron gates of Blackwood Manor, clutching her worn nursing bag close to her chest. The morning fog wrapped around the towering mansion like a thick blanket, making it look even more intimidating than in the photographs she'd seen online. At 34 years old, she'd worked in plenty of wealthy homes, but nothing quite like this. "Lord, give me strength," she whispered, pressing the intercom button. The salary they were offering would help pay off her student loans and maybe even let her start saving for her own place. After spending years taking care of her sick mother and putting herself through nursing school, Camille was used to doing whatever it took to get by. A crackly voice came through the speaker. "Yes, I'm Camille Rivers, the new nurse for Mr. Blackwood." The gates creaked open slowly and Camille walked up the long driveway, her practical shoes crunching against the gravel. Mrs. Henderson, the housekeeper who had interviewed her last week, was waiting at the front door. She was a thin woman in her 60s, with steel-grey hair pulled back in a tight bun. "You're early," Mrs. Henderson said, checking her watch. "That's good. Mr. Blackwood doesn't like to be kept waiting, though most days he pretends we don't exist at all." Camille followed the housekeeper inside, trying not to gawk at the massive crystal chandelier and the sweeping staircase. Everything looked expensive and untouched, like a museum where nobody actually lived. "Mr. Blackwood's last 3 nurses quit within a month," Mrs. Henderson said as they climbed the stairs. "He can be difficult. Are you sure you're up for this?" Camille straightened her shoulders. "I've handled difficult patients before. Sometimes people push others away because they're hurting." Mrs. Henderson stopped outside a heavy wooden door and lowered her voice. "He wasn't always like this, you know. Before the accident, Mr. Blackwood was different. He threw parties, traveled the world, donated millions to charity. Now he just sits in his study all day, brooding. Such a shame. He's only 40. She knocked on the door. When there was no answer, she pushed it open anyway. The study was dark except for a single lamp on a massive desk. Oliver Blackwood sat in a leather chair, his back to the door. Even from behind, Camille could see he was tall, with broad shoulders, and dark hair streaked with grey at the temples. "Mr. Blackwood, your new nurse is here. I told you I don't need a nurse." His voice was deep and rough, like he didn't use it much anymore. He didn't turn around. "Doctor's orders, sir, and the board of your foundation insisted." Oliver made a sound of disgust. "The board needs to mind their own business. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." "Nevertheless," Mrs. Henderson said firmly, "Miss Rivers will be starting today. I'll leave you two to get acquainted." The housekeeper gave Camille an encouraging nod and left, closing the door behind her. For a moment, there was only silence. Camille took a deep breath and walked around to face her new patient. Oliver Blackwood was handsome in a harsh way, with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes that seemed to burn with anger. A wooden cane leaned against his desk. When he finally looked up at her, his expression was cold. "Let's get one thing straight," he said. "I don't want you here. I don't need you here. The only reason I'm tolerating this is because my lawyers say I have to have medical supervision to maintain control of my foundation." Camille met his gaze steadily. "I understand, Mr. Blackwood, but since we're stuck with each other, we might as well make the best of it. I'm here to help with your physical therapy and pain management. Nothing more." He laughed without humor. "Pain management? Is that what they told you?" "The pain isn't the problem, Miss Rivers. The problem is that I used to be someone who mattered, someone who made a difference in the world. Now I can barely walk across a room without this damn cane." "Having a cane doesn't make you matter less," Camille said quietly. Oliver's eyes flashed. "What would you know about it? About losing everything that made you who you are?" "More than you think." Camille set her bag down and started unpacking her supplies. "I spent 8 years watching my mother fade away from MS. She used to be a dance teacher. By the end, she could barely feed herself. But she never stopped mattering. She never stopped being herself." Something flickered across Oliver's face. Surprise maybe, or recognition. but it was quickly replaced by his usual scowl. "Well, isn't that inspiring?" he said sarcastically. "Is this the part where you tell me everything happens for a reason?" "No," Camille said, arranging his medications on the desk. "This is the part where I tell you it's time for your physical therapy exercises, doctor's orders." Oliver stared at her for a long moment, like he was trying to figure her out. Finally, he grabbed his cane and struggled to his feet. "Fine," he growled, "let's get this over with." As Camille helped him through his exercises, she couldn't help noticing the family photos on the walls. They showed a different Oliver Blackwood, one who smiled easily, who stood tall and proud without a cane. In one picture, he was building houses with Habitat for Humanity. In another, he was accepting some kind of humanitarian award. "You're staring," Oliver said sharply. "Sorry." Camille focused on adjusting his leg position. "It's just, you've done a lot of good in the world, Mr. Blackwood. That doesn't have to stop just because you walk with a cane now. I think we're done for today." His voice was tight with pain, physical or emotional, Camille couldn't tell. "All right." She helped him back to his chair. "Same time tomorrow?" Oliver didn't answer. He just turned away, staring out the window at the fog-covered gardens. But he didn't object when Camille set a glass of water and his pain medication on the desk before leaving. In the hallway, Camille leaned against the wall and let out a long breath. This job wasn't going to be easy, but she'd never been one to back down from a challenge. Besides, there was something about Oliver Blackwood that intrigued her, something beneath all that anger and pain. Whatever it was, she intended to find out. What she didn't know was that behind the study door, Oliver was watching her shadow under the door, wondering why this nurse felt different from all the others, and why, for the first time in months, he was actually looking forward to tomorrow. The first week at Blackwood Manor passed slowly. Every morning, Camille would arrive early, and every morning, Oliver would pretend she didn't exist. But she noticed the small changes, how he'd started taking his medication without argument, how he didn't complain during physical therapy anymore. It wasn't much, but it was something. One rainy afternoon, while Oliver was napping after his exercises, Camille decided to tidy up his study. The room was a mess of papers and books, dust collecting in every corner. Mrs. Henderson had told her the cleaning staff wasn't allowed in here anymore. "He doesn't let anyone touch his things," the housekeeper had warned. But Camille figured, what he didn't know wouldn't hurt him. She was carefully dusting the bookshelves when something caught her eye. One of the leather-bound books stuck out slightly more than the others. When she tried to push it back in place, she heard a click. The entire bookshelf swung forward, revealing a hidden room. Camille's heart pounded. She knew she should close it and walk away. But curiosity got the better of her. She glanced back at Oliver, still sleeping in his chair, and slipped inside. The hidden room was small but filled with treasures. Paintings covered the walls, beautiful watercolors of landscapes and portraits. But what really caught her attention were the letters. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, scattered across a desk, all addressed to my forever love. With trembling hands, Camille picked up one of the letters. "My dearest Eleanor," she read quietly, "another day without you feels like 1,000 years. I see your face in every sunset, hear your laugh in every song. The doctors say I should stop writing these letters, that I need to move on. But how can I move on when half my heart is missing?" The letter was signed simply O. Camille picked up another letter, then another. They told a story of passionate love and devastating loss. Oliver had fallen deeply in love with a woman named Eleanor, an artist who painted all the pictures on the walls. But something had happened. She had left him, disappeared without explanation. What struck Camille most were the descriptions of Eleanor in the letters. Like Camille, she had spent years caring for a sick parent. Like Camille, she had dreams of being an artist, but put them aside for her family. The similarities were eerie. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Camille spun around. Oliver stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on his cane. His face was twisted with fury. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm sorry. I was just cleaning and I found—" "Get out!" His voice was deadly quiet. "Get out of this room right now." Camille hurried past him, her cheeks burning with shame. Oliver followed more, slowly, using his cane. Once they were back in the study, he slammed the hidden door shut. "How dare you," he said, his voice shaking. "That room is private. Those letters are private." "I'm sorry," Camille said again. "I didn't mean to snoop, but Mr. Blackwood, those paintings are beautiful, and the letters are none of your business." He slammed his fist on the desk. "You had no right." "You're right. I didn't. But can I ask you something?" When he didn't respond, she pressed on. "Who was she, Eleanor?" Oliver sank into his chair, suddenly looking exhausted. "She was everything, and then she was gone." "What happened?" He laughed bitterly. "What happened? I drove her away, just like I drive everyone away." He picked up his cane and studied it. "She was an artist, free-spirited, full of life. We were going to travel the world together, help people together. Then the accident happened. I couldn't walk properly anymore, couldn't be the man she fell in love with. So I pushed her away before she could leave on her own. Did you ever try to find her to explain? She's better off without me." Oliver turned to the window. "Just like you'd be better off finding another job, Miss Rivers. I'm sure there are plenty of patients who actually want your help." But Camille didn't move. Instead, she walked over and stood beside his chair. "You know what I think?" she said softly. "I think you're still pushing people away, and I think it's not because you don't need help, but because you're afraid to let anyone close enough to see how much you're hurting." Oliver's hands tightened. On his cane. "You don't know anything about me. I know you write beautiful letters to a woman you loved. I know you have a room full of art that you keep hidden away, just like you keep your heart hidden away." Camille took a deep breath. "And I know that the man who wrote those letters, the man who could love that deeply, is still in there, somewhere." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Rain pattered against the windows, filling the silence. Finally, Oliver said, "You should go home, Miss Rivers. It's getting late." Camille nodded and gathered her things, but at the door she turned back. "The letters mentioned that Eleanor used to paint in the garden," she said. Maybe tomorrow, if the rain stops, we could do your physical therapy out there." Oliver didn't respond, but the next morning when Camille arrived, she found him already dressed and waiting, his cane in hand. "Well," he said gruffly, "are we going? Into the garden or not?" Camille smiled. It wasn't much, but it was a start. What she didn't know was that after she left each evening, Oliver would open the hidden room and stare at the paintings for hours. And lately, he'd started seeing something new in them. Not just memories of Eleanor, but possibilities for the future. A future that, more and more, seemed to include a certain stubborn nurse who refused to let him push her away. The garden became their daily routine. Every morning, Camille would help Oliver walk the winding paths between the flower beds, his cane leaving small marks in the gravel. Some days were better than others. Some days he could make it all the way to Eleanor's old painting spot. Other days the pain was too much, and they'd sit on the nearest bench while Camille told stories about her mother to distract him. "She used to say that dancing wasn't about moving your feet," Camille said one morning, adjusting Oliver's cane grip. "It was about moving your soul." Oliver looked at her strangely. Eleanor used to say something similar about painting. The similarities between Camille and Eleanor kept piling up, impossible to ignore. They both hummed while they worked. They both took their coffee with too much sugar. They both had a way of looking at Oliver that made him feel seen, really seen, for the first time in years. But just as things were starting to change between them, the past came knocking at the door. It happened on a sunny Tuesday morning. Camille arrived at the manor to find a sleek red sports car parked in the driveway. Inside the study, Oliver wasn't alone. A tall, elegant woman in expensive clothes was perched on the edge of his desk. "Camille," Oliver said, his voice tight. "This is Victoria Blackwood, my sister-in-law." Victoria looked Camille up and down, taking in her simple nurse's uniform. "So you're the new nurse everyone's talking about?" "Everyone?" Camille asked. "Oh yes, the board members are very interested in Oliver's recovery." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Especially now that James, my husband, Oliver's brother, is running the foundation." "Temporarily," Oliver growled. "Until I'm back on my feet," Victoria laughed. "Of course, darling. Though I must say, James has done wonders with the company. All those old-fashioned charity projects you loved so much were really dragging down our profits." Camille saw Oliver's hands tighten on his cane. She stepped forward. "Mr. Blackwood has physical therapy now. Perhaps we could continue this discussion later." "Actually," Victoria said, "I need to talk to you, Miss Rivers. In private." Oliver started to protest, but Victoria was already steering Camille into the hallway. Once the door was closed, her friendly manner disappeared. "Listen carefully," Victoria said in a low voice. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it needs to stop. I'm not playing any game, I'm doing my job, and please," Victoria rolled her eyes, "we both know what's really going on here. First Eleanor, now you. Oliver certainly has a type, doesn't he? Poor little caregivers with big dreams." Camille felt her face grow hot. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb. I've seen the way he looks at you, the way you're trying to fix him." Victoria stepped closer. "But here's what. You don't understand. The foundation needs strong leadership right now. James can provide that, Oliver. Well, let's just say it's better for everyone if he stays exactly as he is. Broken, dependent, out of the way." "Are you threatening me?" "Not at all. I'm offering you a deal. There's a nursing position open at Mount Sinai Hospital. Better pay, better hours. All you have to do is take it and leave Oliver alone. Tell him you can't handle his attitude anymore. Break his heart a little. He's used to that." Camille's voice shook with anger. "You're trying to bribe me to abandon my patient?" "I'm trying to help you make the smart choice." Victoria pulled out a business card. "Think about it, but don't take too long. This offer has an expiration date." She clicked away on her expensive heels, leaving Camille standing in the hallway with the card in her trembling hands. Inside the study, Oliver was staring out the window. What did she want? Nothing important. Camille crumpled the card and threw it in the trash. "Ready for your exercises?" But things felt different after Victoria's visit. Oliver was distant again, lost in thought. And Camille couldn't stop thinking about what Victoria had said about Eleanor, about Oliver having a type. That afternoon, while Oliver rested, Camille snuck back into the hidden room. She needed answers. The letters were still scattered across the desk, but this time she noticed something else. A small photo album, hidden behind the stacks of paper. The pictures inside made her gasp. Eleanor could have been her sister. The same warm brown skin, the same curly hair, even the same smile. No wonder Oliver had hired her. No wonder he sometimes looked at her like he was seeing a ghost. "I thought I told you to stay out of here." Camille jumped. Oliver stood in the doorway again, but this time he didn't look angry, just tired. "I'm sorry," she said, "but I had to know." Victoria says a lot of things. Oliver moved into the room, leaning on his cane. "But yes, you look like her. I noticed it the day you arrived. Is that why you hired me?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Maybe at first. But you're not her, Camille. You're something else entirely." The way he said her name, not Miss Rivers, but Camille, made her heart skip. "These paintings," she said, gesturing to the walls, "they're beautiful. Why do you keep them locked away?" "Because looking at them hurts." Oliver picked up one of the letters. "Everything in this room is a reminder of what I lost. What I threw away. Or maybe," Camille said softly, "they're a reminder of what you could have again, if you'd just let yourself." Oliver looked at her then, really looked at her, and Camille felt like she could hardly breathe. He took a step toward her, unsteady without his cane, but before either of them could say anything else, Mrs. Henderson's voice called from the study. "Mr. Blackwood, your brother James is here for the board meeting." The moment shattered. Oliver stepped back, his walls going up again. "You should go," he said roughly. "I have business to attend to." Camille nodded and slipped past him. But as she drove home that evening, she couldn't stop thinking about the look in his eyes. And she couldn't stop wondering if Victoria was right, if she was just fooling herself, trying to fix a man who was still in love with someone else's ghost. What she didn't know was that after she left, Oliver took down one of Eleanor's paintings. For the first time in years, he replaced it with a blank canvas. And for the first time since the accident, he picked up a paintbrush. James Blackwood was everything his brother wasn't. While Oliver hid away in his study, James worked the room at the Foundation's board meeting like a politician at a fundraiser. His designer suit was perfectly pressed, his smile practiced and smooth. Camille watched from the doorway as he charmed the board members one by one. Oliver's condition is obviously concerning, James was saying, shuffling some papers on the conference table. His emotional stability has been questionable since the accident, and now I'm hearing he's becoming dependent on his nurse. Several board members glanced at Camille. She lifted her chin, refusing to look away. That's not true, she said, stepping into the room. Mr. Blackwood is making excellent progress with his physical therapy. Ah, Miss Rivers, James's smile didn't waver. I don't believe this meeting concerns you. Actually, it does. Oliver's voice came from behind her. He stood in the doorway, leaning on his cane but standing straighter than usual. Camille stays. A whisper went through the room. Oliver hadn't attended a board meeting in months. Brother, James said smoothly, we weren't expecting you. You've been so reclusive lately. Yes, I'm sure that's been very convenient for you. Oliver made his way to the head of the table. Especially while you've been dismantling everything. High built. Now, Oliver, you know the foundation needed modernizing. Modernizing? Oliver slapped a stack of papers on the table. Is that what you call selling our homeless shelters to developers, cutting funding to the children's programs, trading our charitable works for corporate profits? The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The foundation is more profitable than ever, James argued. The foundation was never about profits. Oliver's voice boomed through the room. It was about helping people who needed it most. Our father understood that. Our father is dead, James snapped. And you're not fit to run things anymore. Look at you, you can barely walk. You spend your days hiding in your study, mooning over some woman who left you years ago. The only person you even talk to is your nurse. That's enough. Camille stepped forward. Mr. Blackwood may have physical challenges, but his mind is sharp as ever, and his heart is in the right place, which is more than I can say for some people in this room. Victoria, who had been quietly watching from a corner, suddenly spoke up. Oh, isn't this sweet? The nurse defending her patient. Tell me, Miss Rivers, did you turn down our job offer because you actually care about Oliver's recovery, or because you're hoping to be the next Eleanor? The room went dead silent. Oliver's face turned pale. Victoria, James warned. Not now. But Victoria was on a roll. The board should know, shouldn't they? How Oliver hired a nurse who looks exactly like his ex-girlfriend. How she's trying to manipulate him, just like Eleanor did. That's a lie. Camille felt tears stinging her eyes. I have never... Show them, Oliver, Victoria insisted. Show them the hidden room, the paintings, tell them how you hired this woman because she looks just like your precious Eleanor. Oliver gripped his cane so hard his knuckles turned white. Get out. Excuse me? All of you. Get out. The meeting is over. When no one moved, he shouted, Now! The board members hurried out, whispering among themselves. James lingered at the door. This isn't over, brother, he said quietly. The board votes on leadership next week. After this display, I think we both know how that vote will go. Once everyone was gone, Oliver collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands. Camille stood awkwardly by the door, unsure if she should leave too. Mr. Blackwood, don't. His voice was rough. Just don't. They're wrong about you. She said firmly, and they're wrong about us. Oliver looked up at her, his eyes full of pain. Are they? I did hire you because you look like her. I saw your application photo and I couldn't help myself. I'm no better than James and Victoria. I've been using you to live in the past. That might be why you hired me, Camille said softly. But is that still why I'm here? Their eyes met across the room. Something electric passed between them. No, Oliver whispered. That's not why anymore. Before Camille could respond, Mrs. Henderson burst into the room. Mr. Blackwood, come quickly, someone's broken into the study. They rushed to the study as fast as Oliver could move. The hidden door was wide open. Inside, the room was a mess. Paintings torn from walls, letters scattered everywhere. But worst of all, Eleanor's most beautiful painting, the one of the garden in full bloom, was missing. James, Oliver growled. He's trying to prove I'm unstable. Using Eleanor. Against me again. We'll find it, Camille promised. We'll prove he's behind this. Oliver turned to her, his face determined. No, I'm done letting the past control me. Let him take the painting. I don't need it anymore. He limped to his desk and pulled out a small key. There's something I need to show you. In his private safe behind a stack of legal papers was a new painting, still wet in places. It showed Camille in the garden, sunlight in her hair, helping Oliver with his exercises. I started painting again, he said quietly. Because of you. Not because you look like Eleanor. Because you're you. Camille touched the painting with trembling fingers. Oliver. But before she could say more, Mrs. Henderson appeared again, looking worried. Miss Rivers, there's someone here to see you. She says she's Eleanor. In the doorway stood a woman Camille had only seen in paintings. She looked older now, her hair streaked with grey, but the resemblance was still striking. Hello, Oliver, Eleanor said softly. I think it's time we talked. Oliver's face went white as a sheet, and Camille felt her heart breaking, even as she tried to tell herself she had no right to feel this way. After all, wasn't this what Oliver had been waiting for all these years? But then Oliver did something that surprised them all. He reached for Camille's hand and held it tight. The study fell silent as Eleanor stepped into the room. She looked exactly like her photos, but older, with fine lines around her eyes and strands of silver in her hair. She wore simple clothes, jeans and a paint-stained sweater, so different from Victoria's designer outfits. Oliver's hand tightened around Camille's. Why are you here? James called me, Eleanor said. He said you were struggling, that you needed closure. James. Oliver's voice was bitter. Of course, another one of his games. Mrs. Henderson hovered in the doorway. Shall I bring some tea? No, Oliver said sharply. She's not staying. But Eleanor moved further into the room, her eyes taking in the changes. The medical equipment in the corner, the physical therapy supplies, the painting supplies on the desk that hadn't been there when she left. You're painting again, she said softly. No thanks to you. Oliver finally let go of Camille's hand and gripped his cane. You left without a word. No explanation, no goodbye. Just disappeared. Because you pushed me away. Eleanor's calm facade cracked. After the accident, you shut me out, refused to see me, told everyone to tell me you were done with me. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? From this. Oliver gestured at his leg, his cane. From being tied to a broken man who couldn't give you the life you deserved. Camille started to slip toward the door, feeling like an intruder, but Oliver's voice stopped her. Stay, he said. Please. Eleanor looked between them, understanding dawning in her eyes. I see James wasn't exaggerating about your nurse. Don't, Oliver warned. Don't make this about how she looks like you, doesn't she? The same hair, the same smile, even the same way of looking at you like you hang the moon. Camille felt her face grow hot. I should give you two some privacy. No. Oliver's voice was firm. Eleanor came here for a reason. Let's hear it. Eleanor sighed and pulled an envelope from her bag. Actually, I came because of this. James sent it to me last week. Inside the envelope was a letter, one of Oliver's letters to Eleanor, but not one from the hidden room. This one was recent, dated just a few weeks ago. I never wrote this, Oliver said, scanning the words. His face darkened. This is a forgery. I thought it might be. Eleanor smiled sadly. The Oliver I knew would never beg me to come back. He was too proud for that. James must have copied my handwriting from the old letters, all part of his plan to make me look unstable before the board vote. He told me you were obsessed with the past, that you'd hired a nurse who looks like me because you couldn't let go. Eleanor turned to Camille. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. I'm not, Camille said quietly. Oliver needed someone to remind him of who he is, not who he was. Eleanor studied her thoughtfully. You know, when I first walked in, I thought James was right, that Oliver had hired you because of me. But you're nothing like me, are you? You're stronger. Eleanor, Oliver started. No, let me finish. I ran away when things got hard. When you pushed me away, I let you. Because deep down, maybe I wasn't ready for that kind of challenge. She gestured at Camille, but she stayed. Even when you tried to drive her away, she stayed. Before anyone could respond, voices echoed from the hallway. James and Victoria arguing with Mrs. Henderson. "He can't hide in there forever," James was saying. "The board needs answers." Oliver straightened his shoulders. "Time to end this." He limped to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. "James isn't just selling off our charitable projects. He's been embezzling from the foundation. I've been gathering proof." That's why he's pushing for the board vote, Camille realized. He needs control of the foundation before anyone discovers what he's done. "And when I started showing improvement, started taking an interest in the foundation again, He panicked, Eleanor finished. "Used me as a distraction, tried to make you look unstable." James burst into the study, Victoria right behind him. He stopped short when he saw Eleanor. "Well, isn't this cozy, the past and present together at last?" His smile was ugly. "Have you shown Eleanor the hidden room yet, brother? All those pathetic letters?" "The only pathetic thing here is you," Oliver said calmly. He held up the folder. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice the money disappearing? That I was too broken to care about the foundation anymore?" James's smile faltered. "What are you talking about? Bank records, fake accounts, money trails leading right to your personal accounts." Oliver pulled out his phone. "The police are already on their way." Victoria grabbed James's arm. "We need to go now." But Mrs. Henderson was blocking the door, and behind her stood 2 police officers. "James Blackwood," one officer said, "we need you to come with us." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. James shoved Victoria aside and lunged for the folder in Oliver's hands. Oliver stumbled, his cane clattering to the floor, but before he could fall, Camille was there, catching him. The police tackled James to the ground as Victoria screamed. Papers scattered everywhere, but it didn't matter. The evidence was already in the hands of the authorities. "Are you okay?" Camille asked Oliver softly. He looked down at her, still holding onto her arms. "I've never been better." Eleanor watched, them with a bittersweet smile. "I should go, but Oliver, I'm glad you found someone who could do what I couldn't, help you find yourself again." After the police led James and Victoria away, after Eleanor said her final goodbye, after Mrs. Henderson brought them all much-needed cups of tea, Oliver and Camille stood in the hidden room. "We should take these down," Oliver said, looking at Eleanor's paintings. "Make room for new memories." "Are you sure?" He picked up his newest painting, the one of Camille in the garden. "Eleanor was my past. A beautiful past, but still the past. You're my future, if you want to be." Instead of answering, Camille reached up and touched his cheek. And finally, after all these months of holding back, Oliver leaned down and kissed her. But their moment of peace wouldn't last long. Because even as they stood there in each other's arms, Victoria was making a phone call from the police station. And her words would change everything. "Find out everything you can about Camille Rivers. Everyone has secret, and I'm going to make sure hers destroy her." Victoria sat in her expensive penthouse apartment, a glass of wine in her hand, staring at the file her private investigator had just delivered. A cruel smile spread across her face as she read. "Oh, Camille," she whispered, "you've been a very bad girl." Meanwhile, at Blackwood Manor, things were finally looking up. With James in jail awaiting trial for embezzlement, Oliver had taken back control of the foundation. The board members who had doubted him were now singing his praises, especially after he announced new plans to expand their charitable works. "You're late," Oliver teased as Camille rushed into his study one morning, her cheeks flushed from running. "Sorry, the bank needed me to fill out some paperwork for my student loan refinancing." She gave him a quick kiss. "Apparently dating a millionaire doesn't automatically fix your credit score." Oliver caught her hand before she could pull away. "You know, I could—" "Don't even think about it." Camille's voice was firm. "I'm still your nurse, and I'm going to pay off my loans myself." Stubborn woman. "You love it." Their relationship was still new, still secret from most of the world. But Mrs. Henderson had noticed the change in Oliver. He smiled more, laughed more. Some days he even forgot to use his cane. "Love looks good on you both," the housekeeper said one afternoon, bringing them tea in the garden. But storm clouds were gathering. Victoria had been busy making calls, pulling strings, digging into Camille's past. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a letter. Camille found it in her mailbox, no return address. I know what you did, it read. Does Oliver know about Chicago? Camille's hands shook as she burned the letter. That part of her life was supposed to be buried. She'd worked so hard to put it behind her. But more letters came. Then photos. Then finally a video link. Late one night, after Oliver had fallen asleep in his study, Camille sat alone watching the video on her phone. Tears streamed down her face as she saw herself, 5 years younger, being led out of Chicago Memorial Hospital in handcuffs. Miss Rivers? Camille jumped. Mrs. Henderson stood in the doorway, concern on her face. Are you all right, dear? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. Camille wiped her eyes quickly. Just tired. But she wasn't fine. The next day, more. Letters arrived, this time at the manor. Bills, bills and more bills, Oliver grumbled, sorting through his mail. He paused, holding up a thick manila envelope. This one's for you. Camille's heart stopped. I'll look at it later. But Oliver was already opening it. Might be important. He froze as photos spilled out onto his desk. They showed Camille, in her old nurse's uniform at Chicago Memorial. They showed her arguing with a doctor, and they showed her being arrested. Camille? Oliver's voice was quiet. What is this? Before she could answer, Victoria swept into the room. Oh, good, you got my little care package. She smiled like a cat who'd caught a mouse. I thought it was time Oliver knew the truth about his precious nurse. Victoria, get out, Oliver snapped. Now, brother-in-law. Don't you want to know why your girlfriend was fired from Chicago Memorial? Why she was arrested? Victoria picked up one of the photos. It's quite a story, involving a very wealthy patient, some missing medication and a mysterious death. Stop it, Camille whispered. The charges were eventually dropped, of course. Not enough evidence. But the hospital board made sure she'd never work there again. Isn't that right, Camille? Oliver looked at Camille, his face unreadable. Is this true? I can explain. She was desperate for money, Victoria continued. Her mother's medical bills were piling up, and that rich patient had so many prescriptions. Who would notice if a few pills went missing? If they could be sold to pay the bills? That's not what happened, Camille's voice broke. The doctor was the one stealing medications. I caught him. But he was friends with the board, and when the patient died, he blamed me. I tried to fight it, but I had no proof. No one would believe a young black nurse over a respected white doctor. A convenient story, Victoria said smoothly, but can you prove it? Get out. Oliver's voice was like ice. Now. Victoria shrugged and headed for the door. Just thought you should. Know who you're really involved with. After all, we wouldn't want history to repeat itself, would we? A nurse taking advantage of a vulnerable patient. After she left, silence fell heavy in the study. Camille couldn't look at Oliver. Why didn't you tell me? He finally asked. Because I was afraid. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Afraid you wouldn't believe me. Afraid you'd think I was just like Victoria said, someone trying to take advantage of you. Camille, look at me. She raised her eyes to meet his. Instead of anger or disgust, she saw only concern. Do you trust me? He asked softly. She nodded. Then, tell me everything. From the beginning, so she did. She told him about Dr. Marcus, how she'd caught him stealing medications to sell on the black market, how he'd threatened to ruin her career if she reported him, how when his wealthy patient died of an overdose, he planted evidence to frame her. The police eventually figured out he was lying, but by then the damage was done. My reputation was ruined in Chicago. I had to start over somewhere new. Oliver was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, grabbed his cane and walked to the window. We need to find Dr. Marcus, he said finally. What? Why? Because. Oliver turned to face her, his eyes blazing with determination. No one threatens the woman I love and gets away with it. Not Victoria, not some corrupt doctor, no one. Camille's heart skipped at the word love. Oliver, I mean it. He limped back to her and took her hands. You stood by me when I was at my worst. Let me stand by you now. We'll clear your name together. But even as he pulled her into his arms, Victoria was making another phone call. Dr. Marcus? Yes, she's here in New York, and she's still causing trouble. Yes, I think it's time you paid her a visit. Dr. Richard Marcus looked exactly how Camille remembered him. Tall, distinguished, with silver hair and the kind of smile that made people trust him instantly. That smile had fooled the entire hospital board in Chicago. But it didn't fool her anymore. Miss Rivers. He stood in the Manor's entrance hall, medical bag in hand. "It's been a long time." Camille backed away. "How did you get in here?" "Oh, I have a new patient in the neighborhood." His smile widened. "Mr. Oliver Blackwood. Seems he's been having some pain management issues. His sister-in-law, Victoria, highly recommended me." "Get out." Camille's voice shook. "Oliver already has a doctor and a nurse." Dr. Marcus looked around the expensive hallway. "You certainly landed on your feet after Chicago, trading up from a regular hospital to private care for a millionaire. Very impressive. If you're trying to threaten me..." "Threaten? Not at all." He set his bag down. "I'm here to make you an offer. Walk away from Oliver Blackwood and this house, and I'll make sure your past stays in the past. Keep causing trouble and, well, accidents happen, especially to patients under the care of nurses with questionable histories." Before Camille could respond, Oliver's voice rang out from the top of the stairs. "Is there a problem here?" Dr. Marcus's smile never wavered. "So, Mr. Blackwood, I'm Dr. Marcus. Your sister-in-law contacted me about your condition." "Did she?" Oliver made his way down the stairs, leaning on his cane. "Funny she didn't mention it. I have an excellent reputation." "Yes, I know all about your reputation." Oliver reached the bottom of the stairs and stood beside Camille. "Including what you did in Chicago." Dr. Marcus's smile slipped slightly. "I'm not sure what you mean." "No? Then let me refresh your memory." Oliver pulled out his phone and played a recording. Victoria's voice filled the hall. "Dr. Marcus, yes, she's here in New York, and she's still causing trouble." Then another recording, Dr. Marcus's voice this time. "Don't worry, Victoria. I know how to handle nurses who don't know their place. By the time I'm done, no one will believe a word she says." The doctor's face went pale. "Where did you get that?" "You'd be amazed what kind of security system you can install when you have millions to spend." Oliver's voice was cold. "Every call Victoria made from this house was recorded, including the ones where she hired you to threaten Camille." "You can't prove anything about Chicago." "Actually, we can." Mrs. Henderson appeared from the library, holding a manila envelope. "It's amazing what people remember when offered enough money to jog their memories. 3 nurses from Chicago Memorial have signed affidavits about the medications they saw you stealing. And your former patient's family. They're very interested in reopening the investigation into their father's death." Dr. Marcus grabbed his bag. "You're making a mistake." "No, you made the mistake." Oliver stepped forward. "You thought you could come into my house and threaten the woman I love. Big mistake." The front door opened, revealing 2 police officers. "Dr. Richard Marcus," one said. "We need you to come with us." "You can't arrest me. I'm a respected physician. Tell that to the DEA agents waiting at the station." Oliver smiled grimly. "They're very interested in your creative approach to prescription writing." As the police led Dr. Marcus away, Camille sagged against Oliver. "I can't believe it's finally over," she whispered. "Almost over," Oliver corrected. "We still have to deal with Victoria." But Victoria was already 1 step ahead of them. While they were confronting Dr. Marcus, she was at the Foundation's office, meeting with the board. "I hate to bring this to your attention," she said, sliding photos across the table. "But Oliver's relationship with his nurse is completely inappropriate. And given her criminal history." The board chairman frowned at the photos of Oliver and Camille kissing in the garden. "This is a serious ethical breach." "So of course, if Oliver were to step down voluntarily," Victoria suggested smoothly, "we could avoid a scandal." Back at the manor, Oliver and Camille were celebrating their victory over Dr. Marcus when Mrs. Henderson rushed in. "Mr. Blackwood, the board is calling an emergency meeting. They're voting to remove you as head of the Foundation." Oliver's face hardened. "Victoria, this is all my fault," Camille said. "If I hadn't..." "No." Oliver took her face in his hands. "None of this is your fault. Victoria's just playing her last card." "What are you going to do?" Oliver smiled. "I'm going to do something I should have done a long time ago." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Eleanor, I need your help one last time. Within an hour, Eleanor arrived at the manor, carrying a large art portfolio. Are you sure about this? She asked Oliver. He nodded. It's time everyone knew the truth. As they headed to the Foundation's offices, Camille grabbed Oliver's arm. Whatever happens in there, she said softly, I love you. Oliver kissed her. That's all that matters. But when they walked into the boardroom, they found Victoria already there, looking triumphant. Perfect timing, she said. We were just about to vote on your replacement. Before you do, Oliver said calmly, there's something you should see. Eleanor opened her portfolio and began laying out paintings. But these weren't the ones from the hidden room. These were new, showing dark hospital corridors, shadowy figures passing drugs, money changing hands. I wasn't just Oliver's girlfriend. Eleanor explained to the stunned board members. I was an undercover journalist, investigating prescription drug trafficking at major hospitals. 5 years ago, I was working on a story about Dr. Richard Marcus. But someone warned him I was getting close. She looked at Victoria, who had gone very still. Someone who knew about my relationship with Oliver. Someone who told Dr. Marcus exactly how to find me and threaten me. That's why I had to disappear, to protect my investigation and to protect Oliver. Victoria warned Marcus about you? Camille asked. Eleanor nodded. She's been helping him cover up his drug operation for years, taking kickbacks, using the Foundation's charitable programs as a front for distribution. That's ridiculous, Victoria sputtered. You can't prove any of this. Actually, we can. Oliver handed the board chairman a thick file. Bank records, phone logs, witness statements, everything Eleanor gathered over the past 5 years, including proof that Victoria helped Marcus frame Camille in Chicago when she got too close to the truth. The chairman looked through the file, his face growing darker with each page. Victoria Blackwood, he said finally, I think you should leave. And expect a call from our lawyers. Victoria stood, her composure cracking. You're making a mistake, all of you. No, Victoria, Oliver said quietly. The mistake was thinking you could hurt the people I love and get away with it. After she stormed out, the chairman turned to Oliver. We owe you an apology, Mr. Blackwood, both you and Miss Rivers. But Oliver wasn't done. He took Camille's hand and faced the board. I won't deny my relationship with Camille. In fact, I want to make it official. He turned to her. I was going to save this for a more romantic moment, but... Camille's heart stopped as Oliver reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Camille Rivers, he said softly, will you marry me? Before she could answer, Mrs. Henderson burst into the room. Turn on the news, quickly. On the boardroom's large TV, a breaking news report showed Victoria being led out of her penthouse in handcuffs. But what made everyone gasp was the headline, Deadly Accident. Victoria Blackwood injured in car crash after police chase. Claims to have proof of larger conspiracy. The engagement ring box lay forgotten on the boardroom table as everyone watched the news unfold. Victoria's silver sports car was wrapped around a tree, emergency vehicles flashing around it. The reporter's voice was grim. Sources say Victoria Blackwood was fleeing police when her car went off the road. Before being taken to the hospital, she claimed to have evidence of widespread corruption involving not just the Blackwood Foundation, but several major hospitals and pharmaceutical companies. She's lying, Eleanor said. She's just trying to save herself. But Camille wasn't so sure. Something about Victoria's accusations nagged at her, pieces of a puzzle she couldn't quite see. Take me to the hospital, she said suddenly. Oliver stared at her. What? Camille, you still haven't answered my... I know and I will, but right now we need to talk to Victoria. After everything she did to you, Camille touched his cheek. Trust me. At Metropolitan General Hospital, they found Victoria in the ICU, hooked up to beeping machines. Her perfect hair was matted with blood, her designer outfit replaced by a hospital gown. She looked small and broken. Well, she said weakly when she saw them. Come to gloat. No. Camille moved to check her vitals. Once a nurse, always a nurse. I came because something doesn't add up. The drug operation at Chicago Memorial was too big for just one doctor. Even with your help, Dr. Marcus couldn't have done it alone. Victoria laughed. then winced in pain. Finally, someone asks the right question. What do you mean? Why do you think James was so desperate to control the foundation? It wasn't just about money. The charitable programs weren't just a front for Marcus's operation. They were a front for something much bigger. Oliver stepped forward. What are you talking about? Your precious father wasn't as clean as you thought, Oliver. Where do you think the foundation's original money came from? Daddy Dearest had quite the side business distributing medical supplies through his hospitals. You're lying. Am I? Check the old records, the ones in the hidden safe behind your mother's portrait. Your father may have gone legitimate in his later years, but a lot of people still remembered his debts, including James. Camille's mind raced. That's why James was dismantling the charitable programs. He wasn't just embezzling, he was being forced to pay off old debts. Victoria nodded. The same people your father worked with threatened to expose everything unless James kept the supplies flowing. When he got arrested, I had to step in, but now, she gestured at her injured body, I guess they decided I wasn't useful anymore. Who are they? Oliver demanded. I have names, records, everything's in a safe deposit box. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I'll tell you where, just promise you'll protect me. These people, they don't forgive failure. Before anyone could respond, the heart monitor started beeping frantically. Victoria's eyes rolled back. She's crashing. Camille hit the emergency button. Get a doctor in here. The next hours were a blur of medical teams, police interviews, and shocking discoveries. The safe deposit box contained enough evidence to bring down not just Dr. Marcus, but an entire network of corrupt hospital administrators and drug distributors. Victoria had been gathering proof for years, planning to use it as insurance. Back at the manor, Oliver sat in his study, staring at old photos of his father. I can't believe he was involved in all this, he said quietly. Camille sat beside him. People can change, Oliver. Your father did. He turned the foundation into something good. And now it's my turn. He took her hand. But I can't do it alone. About that proposal, Oliver's face fell. I understand if you don't want to. Yes. What? Camille smiled. Yes, I'll marry you. Not because you're a millionaire or because I look like Eleanor, but because you see me, really see me, and because I love you, limp and all. Oliver pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply. For a moment, all the chaos fell away, but their peace was interrupted by Mrs. Henderson rushing in, again. Mr. Blackwood, Miss Rivers, Victoria's gone. What do you mean gone? She disappeared from the hospital and she left this note. The note was short. They found me, I'm sorry, run. Suddenly all the lights in the manor went out. In the darkness they heard footsteps, multiple sets, coming from different directions. Oliver? Camille whispered. Get behind me. No. She squared her shoulders. We face this together. As flashlights' beams swept through the darkness, Oliver and Camille stood side by side. His cane in one hand, her hand in his other, the footsteps got closer. And then a voice, one that Oliver hadn't heard in 15 years, spoke from the shadows. Hello, son. We need to talk about your father's debts. The voice from the darkness belonged to Frank Morrison, a man Oliver hadn't seen since his father's funeral. He hadn't aged well. His face was deeply lined, his hair completely white, but his eyes were as cold as Oliver remembered. Frank. Oliver's voice was tight. I thought you were in prison. I was. For 15 years. Frank stepped into the dim emergency lighting. 15 years while your father lived the good life, pretending he'd never known me, never worked with me. Two men with guns flanked Frank, their weapons trained on Oliver and Camille. What do you want? Oliver asked. The same thing I wanted. From your brother. Cooperation. The Foundation's charitable programs were perfect for our distribution network, but James got sloppy, got caught, and Victoria... Frank shook his head. Victoria thought she could blackmail us. Is she dead? Not yet, but she will be once we find her. Frank smiled. Just like you two will be, unless you agree to help us rebuild what your brother destroyed. Camille squeezed Oliver's hand. In the darkness she could feel him trembling, not with fear but with rage. My father spent years trying to make up for what he did, Oliver said, building hospitals, helping people. I won't let you destroy that legacy. Your father was weak, Frank spat. He forgot where he came from, who his real friends were, but you're going to help us, Oliver, because if you don't... One of the gunmen grabbed Camille, pressing his weapon to her head. No. Oliver started forward, but the other gunman stopped him. It's simple, Frank said. Sign control of the foundation over to me and your lovely nurse lives. Refuse and... He shrugged. Camille met Oliver's eyes in the dim light. Don't, she said firmly. Whatever happens to me, don't give them what they want. Shut up. The gunman pressed the barrel harder against her temple. Oliver's mind raced. He needed time, needed a plan. Let me show you something first, he said to Frank. Proof that my father left for a situation like this. Frank hesitated. What kind of proof? In the hidden room, behind the bookshelf. Oliver gestured with his cane. There's a safe. Inside is everything my father knew about your operation, insurance, he called it. Show me. They moved as a group to the study. Frank, his gunman, Oliver leaning on his cane, and Camille with a gun still to her head. No one noticed Mrs. Henderson slip away in the darkness. In the study, Oliver pulled the book that opened the hidden room. But as the bookshelf swung open, he stumbled, his cane clattering to the floor. Pick it up, he said to the gunman holding Camille. The man hesitated. Pick it up, Frank ordered. We need him to open the safe. The moment the gunman loosened his grip on Camille, everything happened at once. Oliver surged forward, far faster than a man with a bad leg should be able to move. Camille drove her elbow back into her captor's stomach, years of self-defense classes kicking in. And through the study windows came bright searchlights and a megaphone voice. This is the FBI. The building is surrounded, Mrs. Henderson had called. Not just the police, but the FBI agents who'd been investigating the drug network. She'd been working with them ever since Victoria's evidence came to light. Frank raised his gun with a roar of rage, but Oliver was already tackling him. They crashed into the hidden room, wrestling for the weapon. A shot rang out. Oliver, Camille screamed, but Oliver was already standing, Frank's gun in his hand. Years of physical therapy had made him stronger than anyone suspected. It's over. Frank, he said. FBI agents swarmed the study, taking Frank and his men into custody. As they led them away, Frank turned back. Your father was just like me, he said to Oliver. No matter what you do, that blood runs in your veins. No. Oliver took Camille's hand. I'm nothing like him and nothing like you. After the chaos died down, after the FBI had taken their statements and the power had been restored, Oliver and Camille stood in the hidden room. I have a confession, Oliver said. There was never any safe with evidence. I just needed them to bring you in here. Why? He smiled and pulled away a loose panel in the wall, revealing a small metal box. Inside was a letter, written in his father's handwriting. To my son, Oliver read aloud. If you're reading this, it means you've discovered the truth about my past. I spent years trying to make up for the lives I destroyed, but I know it will never be enough. The foundation is my attempt at redemption. Use it wisely, and never forget, our legacy is not in our blood, but in our choices. Camille wiped tears from her eyes. He would be proud of you. I hope so. Oliver tucked the letter away. Now, about that wedding. But before Camille could respond, Mrs. Henderson appeared in the doorway, looking pale. They found Victoria, she said. She's alive, but she says there's one more secret we need to know. About Eleanor. Oliver and Camille looked at each other. Just when they thought it was over. What about Eleanor? Camille asked. Mrs. Henderson wrung her hands. She's your sister, Miss Rivers. Your biological sister. Victoria lay in her hospital bed, looking frail but determined. Eleanor and Camille sat on opposite sides, both still reeling from the news. Your mother, Maria Rivers, Victoria said weakly, had another daughter before you, Camille. A daughter she gave up for adoption when she was just 16. Eleanor's hands trembled. How do you know this? Because I was the one who found the adoption records. Years ago, when Oliver first started dating Eleanor, James asked me to dig up everything I could about her. That's when I discovered the truth. Victoria coughed. Maria Rivers had a baby in 1985, gave her up to protect her from an abusive relationship. That baby was you, Eleanor. Camille's mind spun. But my mother never said anything. She didn't know Eleanor was in New York, didn't know her daughter had grown up to be an artist, had fallen in love with Oliver Blackwood. Victoria smiled sadly. It was the perfect weapon. I kept it secret all these years, waiting for the right moment to use it. Eleanor reached across the bed and took Camille's hand. The resemblance between them was suddenly so clear, not just their looks but their spirits, their determination to care for others, their artistic souls. I always wanted a sister, Eleanor whispered. Tears streamed down Camille's face. Mom would have loved to know you, to see your paintings. She can still know me. Eleanor squeezed her hand. If she's still... She is, in a nursing home in Chicago. The medical bills. Camille's voice broke. Not anymore, Oliver said from the doorway. He stepped into the room, leaning on his cane. The foundation is setting up a fund for families struggling with medical expenses, starting with Maria Rivers. Victoria watched them, her eyes filled with tears. I've spent so many years hurting people, using their secrets against them, but maybe this one secret can heal instead. 1 month later, the garden at Blackwood Manor was in full bloom. White chairs lined the grass, filled with foundation board members, hospital staff and friends. Mrs. Henderson dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief as she watched Oliver stand at the flower-covered altar, Eleanor beside him as best woman, the tea. Music started, and everyone turned to watch Camille walk down the aisle. She wore a simple white dress and carried a bouquet of roses. But what made her radiant was the woman escorting her, Maria Rivers in her wheelchair, beaming with pride. The past week had been a whirlwind of reunions and revelations. Maria had cried for hours when she first saw Eleanor, touching her face, recognizing features from old photos of her own youth. They had stayed up late sharing stories, filling in 30 years of lost time. Now, as Camille reached the altar, both her mother and her sister watched with tears in their eyes. Friends and family, the minister began. We are gathered here today not just to witness a marriage, but to celebrate the healing power of love. A love that broke through walls of pain and pride, that uncovered long-buried truths, that brought a family back together. Oliver and Camille exchanged their vows, their voices strong and sure. When they kissed, the garden erupted in applause. At the reception, Eleanor unveiled her wedding gift, a massive painting of the garden. But this wasn't the garden of the past, full of Eleanor's memories. This was the garden of today, showing Oliver and Camille doing his physical therapy, Maria watching them from her wheelchair, Eleanor sketching nearby. A family, whole at last. There's something else, Eleanor said, pulling out an envelope. The Foundation's new art therapy program? They want me to run it. You're staying? Camille hugged her sister tight. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. Victoria had been released from the hospital, but chose to move away from New York, seeking her own fresh start. Her last gift to the family was a stack of letters, correspondence between a teenage Maria and the adoption agency, full of love and hope for her firstborn daughter's future. As the sun set over the garden, Oliver and Camille swayed together on the dance floor. His leg was stronger now, strong enough to dance at his own wedding. Happy? He asked softly. Camille looked around at their gathered loved ones, at her mother, sharing stories with Mrs. Henderson, at her sister, sketching the scene with quick, loving strokes, at the foundation board members discussing new charitable projects. More than happy, she said. I'm whole. Later that night, they walked through the manor together, stopping at the study. The hidden room's door stood open, but it wasn't hidden anymore. The walls now held both Eleanor's old paintings and new ones, Camille's first attempts at art, encouraged by her sister. Oliver's father's letter was framed alongside photos of their extended family. You know, Oliver said, when I first hired you, I was looking for the past, for what I'd lost. And what did you find instead? He pulled her close. The future. A better one than I could have imagined. Camille kissed him softly. Not bad for a stubborn patient and his equally stubborn nurse. I love you, Mrs. Blackwood. I love you too, limp and all. Outside, the garden bloomed under the stars. no longer a place of lost love and regret, but a place of new beginnings. And in the warm light of the study, surrounded by art and memories, both old and new, Oliver and Camille began their own story. Not a story of the past repeating itself, but of two hearts finding their second chance at happiness. The end.